The explosion of shouts echoed through the terminal as Alexander Blackwood sprinted through JFK International Airport, his designer loafers slapping against the polished floor. His private jet had mechanical issues, today of all days, and his assistant had booked him on a commercial flight to San Francisco for the most important merger meeting of his career. "Wait! Hold the gate!" he shouted, waving his first-class ticket frantically. The gate attendant looked at her watch with a pained expression. "You're just in time, Mr. Blackwood. Final boarding call." Alexander nodded breathlessly, straightening his custom Tom Ford suit as he strode down the jetway. The familiar weight of his Rolex watch reminded him that time, the one thing his billions couldn't buy more of, was running out. As he stepped onto the plane, the first-class cabin looked unusually cramped, and was that a beach scene painted on the bulkhead? "Welcome aboard," a melodic voice greeted him. "Seat 1A is to your right." He turned toward the voice and froze. Standing before him was a flight attendant with the most captivating smile he'd ever seen. Her curly hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her uniform crisp and professional, but her eyes, they sparkled with intelligence and humor that no designer could replicate. "I'm Maya," she said, raising an eyebrow at his stunned expression. "Your seatbelt demonstration comes free with the ticket," Alexander laughed despite himself. "Sorry, I'm Alexander. It's been quite a morning." He settled into his seat, pulling out his laptop immediately. The merger documents needed one final review before landing. "Excuse me," Maya interrupted, "but electronic devices need to remain stowed during takeoff. Do you know who I am?" The words escaped before he could stop them, his standard response when faced with inconvenience. Maya's smile didn't falter. "Someone who still needs to follow FAA regulations, regardless of their net worth." For the first time in a decade, Alexander felt properly chastised and strangely refreshed by her honesty. He reluctantly stowed his laptop. "Fine, but I have a crucial meeting in San Francisco tonight." Maya tilted her head. "San Francisco? This flight is headed to San Juan, Puerto Rico." The blood drained from Alexander's face. "Puerto Rico? No, that's impossible. My ticket says—" He fumbled for his boarding pass and stared in horror at the destination. "SJU, not SFO." "I'm on the wrong flight," he whispered, his perfectly orchestrated life suddenly veering off course. "Too late now," Maya said as the plane began to taxi. "The doors are closed. Looks like you're beach-bound, Mr. Billionaire." Alexander slumped in his seat, his mind racing through the catastrophic consequences. The merger falling apart, millions in losses, his reputation damaged. Yet as Maya moved away to prepare for takeoff, he found himself watching her, the way she reassured a nervous elderly passenger, her genuine laugh at something another flight attendant said. For a man who measured his life in acquisitions and assets, Alexander Blackwood was suddenly acutely aware of something he'd been missing, something no financial statement could quantify. The plane accelerated down the runway, and for once in his meticulously controlled life, Alexander had absolutely no idea what would happen next. Alexander Blackwood had never been good at accepting defeat. Within 15 minutes of takeoff, he had his satellite phone out, barking orders at his assistant. "Jeremy, I don't care if you have to charter a submarine. I need to be in San Francisco by tonight." He glanced up to see Maya approaching with the beverage cart, her eyebrow raised in amusement. "Sir, phone calls are not permitted during the flight," she said, her voice professional, but with an undertone of challenge. Alexander covered. "The phone. It's a satellite phone. FAA approved." "Not on my flight," Maya replied, extending her hand. The nearby passengers watched the standoff with interest. "This is a billion-dollar deal," he hissed. "And this is a pressurized metal tube traveling at 30,000 feet, she countered. "Your billions won't help if we need to make an emergency landing because your call interfered with our instruments." They locked eyes, her warm brown against his icy blue, in a silent power struggle. To his own surprise, Alexander surrendered first, handing over the phone. "I'll return it upon landing," Maya said, tucking it into her pocket. Now, would you like something to drink while you process your newfound powerlessness? Scotch. Neat. Make it a double. Water it is, she decided, pouring him a plastic cup. Alcohol dehydrates, and you're already stressed enough. Alexander stared at the water, torn between outrage and fascination. No one had ever dared to handle him this way. As Maya moved to the next passenger, he couldn't help but notice how seamlessly she moved through the cabin, remembering names, anticipating needs before they were voiced. An hour into the flight, the fasten seatbelt sign flashed on, followed by the captain's voice announcing unexpected turbulence. The plane dropped suddenly, causing several passengers to gasp. Maya, still in the aisle, lost her balance and stumbled directly into Alexander's lap. "Sorry," she said, steadying herself with a hand on his shoulder. For a fleeting moment they were inches apart, close enough that he could smell her light floral perfume. "I usually ask for dinner first," Alexander quipped, surprised by his own playfulness. Maya rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. "In your dreams, Mr. Blackwood." As she regained her footing and moved away, Alexander realized he was smiling. Genuinely smiling, for the first time in months. The turbulence worsened. A young girl across the aisle began to cry in fear, and Alexander watched as Maya knelt beside her. "Hey there," Maya said, her voice soft. "I'm a little scared too. Want to know what I do when I'm afraid?" She pulled out a small notepad. "I draw the things that make me happy." The girl's sobs quieted as Maya sketched a quick cartoon of a puppy, then handed the pad to the child to continue. Alexander felt something shift inside him. In his world of acquisitions and assets, people were usually means to ends. Maya saw them as people. When she passed by his seat again, he surprised himself by asking, "Have you always wanted to be a flight attendant?" "Actually, I'm working toward my commercial pilot's license," she replied. "Flying was always my dream, but flight school is expensive. Why not take out loans? That's how most people finance their dreams." Maya's smile tightened slightly. "Not, everyone has the luxury of debt, Mr. Blackwood. One medical emergency in my family, and I'd lose everything." Alexander fell silent, confronted with a reality his wealth had insulated him from. He thought of the millions he'd spent on artwork he barely looked at, while Maya was carefully calculating the cost of her aspirations. As the turbulence subsided, Alexander began to feel a different kind of unsteadiness, one that had nothing to do with the aircraft and everything, to do with the woman who kept challenging his worldview with every interaction. By the time the plane leveled off, Alexander Blackwood, who had boarded the wrong flight in a rage, found himself hoping the journey might last just a little bit longer. Halfway to Puerto Rico, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a developing tropical storm near San Juan, we'll be making an unscheduled landing in Miami. We apologize for the inconvenience." A collective groan rippled through the cabin. Alexander, however, felt a surge of hope. Miami meant civilization, connections, possibly a private jet to salvage his San Francisco meeting. When Maya passed by to check seatbelts, Alexander leaned into the aisle. "When we land, I'll need my phone back immediately." "Planning your great escape?" she asked, securing a nearby tray table. "Some of us have responsibilities that can't be rescheduled," he replied, more defensively than intended. Maya's smile faltered slightly. "Right. Because my job of ensuring the safety and comfort of 183 passengers is just a hobby." She moved away, before he could respond, leaving Alexander with an unfamiliar feeling that took him a moment to identify. Shame. The plane touched down in Miami amid sheets of rain. As passengers disembarked, Alexander lingered, waiting for Maya to return his phone. "Here you go," she said, handing it over. "Good luck with your billion-dollar deal." Something in her tone made Alexander hesitate. "Look, I didn't mean to belittle your work. I just—" "Save it," Maya interrupted. "I've met plenty of men like you, Mr. Blackwood. The world revolves around your schedule, your priorities, your success. That's not fair. he protested, though a voice inside whispered that it was entirely fair. What's not fair is that while you're fretting over one meeting, most of these passengers are missing connections they saved all year for, and my crew is scrambling to find hotel rooms during spring break in Miami. Maya gestured to an elderly couple looking lost in the terminal. The Mendozas there were flying to their grandson's wedding. Alexander glanced at his phone. 17 missed calls, 32 texts. The merger was unraveling. He should be on the phone right now, not standing in an airport terminal being lectured about compassion. Yet something kept him rooted to the spot, watching as Maya approached the elderly couple, helping them navigate the rebooking process with genuine care. My phone buzzed again. Jeremy, his assistant. Alexander answered mechanically. I've arranged a private jet, Jeremy said. It can take off in 40 minutes from the executive terminal. Alexander watched Maya laugh at something Mr. Mendoza said, her entire face lighting up. Sir, are you there? The jet is waiting. Alexander made a decision that would have been unthinkable just hours earlier. Cancel it. Excuse me? The jet, the meeting, all of it. Tell them something came up. A family emergency. He hung up before Jeremy could protest. When Maya finished with the Mendozas, Alexander approached her. I'd like to help, he said simply. She eyed him suspiciously. With what? Hotel rooms. I own shares in several chains here. One call and I can arrange accommodations for everyone affected. Maya's expression softened slightly. That's surprisingly decent of you. I'm full of surprises, he replied with a half-smile. Besides, I caused you enough trouble on this flight. Let me make it up to you. Within an hour, Alexander had arranged rooms for all stranded passengers and crew. As evening fell, he found himself sitting across from Maya in the hotel restaurant, sharing a meal neither of them had planned on. So, no San Francisco meeting? She asked, sipping her wine. Alexander shrugged. Some things are more important. Like what? He met her gaze. Like discovering what happens when I stop trying to control everything. Maya studied him thoughtfully. You know, for a billionaire with terrible phone etiquette, you're not entirely awful. High praise indeed, he laughed, coming from a flight attendant with boundary issues. They talked for hours about Maya's dream of becoming a captain, about Alexander's journey from college dropout to business mogul, about the weight of family expectations and the freedom found in the sky. By dessert, Alexander realized with startling clarity that he hadn't checked his phone once, and even more surprisingly, he didn't want to. Outside, the storm raged on, delaying their respective journeys. Neither seemed to mind. Morning arrived with clear skies and resumed flights. Alexander stood in the hotel lobby watching Maya check in with her crew, her professional demeanor back in place, though she caught his eye with a small smile that felt like their own private language. Flight 2187 to San Juan is boarding in an hour, she informed the displaced passengers. And for those continuing to other destinations, we've arranged connecting flights. Alexander approached as the crowd dispersed. What about you? When do you fly back to New York? Tomorrow, Maya replied. 24-hour mandatory rest period after an irregular operation. An idea formed in Alexander's mind, one that would have seemed absurd to him just days ago. Have you ever been to the Vizcaya Museum? It's not far from here. Maya raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Blackwood? I believe I am, Ms. He realized he didn't know her last name. Rodriguez, she supplied. And yes, but only if you promise not to buy the museum if they don't let you skip the line, he laughed. Deal. They spent the day exploring the Renaissance-style villa and gardens, where Alexander discovered that Maya had studied art history before pursuing aviation. Her knowledge rivaled that of the tour guides, her passion evident as she explained the symbolism behind various sculptures. You're full of surprises, he remarked as they strolled along the waterfront. So are you, she replied. Yesterday's entitled passenger is today's attentive tour companion. Maybe I just needed someone to remind me what matters. As sunset painted the Miami sky in hues of pink and gold, Alexander realized he hadn't thought about the failed merger once. Instead, his mind was filled with Maya, her laugh, her perspective, the way she saw beauty in places he'd normally rush past. "I had an idea during our museum tour," he said, as they shared a dinner of Cuban cuisine at a small restaurant Maya had discovered on previous layovers. "Should I be worried?" she teased. "I have a foundation that funds educational initiatives. We could establish a scholarship for aspiring pilots from disadvantaged backgrounds." Maya set down her fork. "That's incredibly thoughtful. You could help design it," he continued, warming to the idea. "Who better than someone living that journey?" "I'd love that," she said, her eyes bright with possibility. The evening ended too quickly. Standing outside her hotel room, neither seemed eager to say goodbye. "So," Alexander began, "you're back to New York tomorrow." "And you to your empire," she replied. He took her hand. "What if I told you I'm rethinking what that empire should stand for?" "I'd say that's a promising start." Their first kiss was nothing like the calculated interactions that typically defined Alexander's relationships. It was real, unscripted, and transformative. 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez stepped onto the tarmac at JFK, no longer in a flight, attendant's uniform but wearing pilot stripes. She had completed her commercial training, the first recipient of the Blackwood Rodriguez Aviation Scholarship. Alexander waited beyond the security gate, having flown back early from a business trip to witness this moment. Their relationship had developed against all odds. Her busy flight schedule, his business commitments, their different worlds gradually finding alignment in shared values and mutual respect. "Captain Rodriguez," he greeted her with a kiss. "How does it feel?" "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," she replied, taking his hand. Alexander smiled. "I know the feeling." As they left the airport, Alexander's phone rang, his assistant with news about another merger opportunity. "Should you take that?" Maya asked. Alexander declined the call. "It can wait. Some things are more important." 1 year to the day after boarding the wrong flight, Alexander Blackwood stood on a beach in Puerto Rico, the destination he'd once been so desperate to avoid, watching Maya approach in a simple white dress, her curls dancing in the ocean breeze. Their wedding was intimate. The Mendozas were there, as were the first 5 recipients of their scholarship program, along with Maya's family and a few of Alexander's actual friends, as opposed to business associates. "You know," Maya whispered as they shared their first dance as husband and wife, "most people would say getting on the wrong plane was a mistake." Alexander pulled her closer. "I'd call it the best detour of my life." As the stars appeared over the Caribbean, Alexander Blackwood, once defined by his wealth and acquisitions, realized his greatest fortune had nothing to do with his bank account. It was the woman in his arms and the unexpected journey that had led them both exactly where they needed to be